Let me invite to the stage Faryar Shirzad, Chief Policy Officer, my good friend at Coinbase. I'm going to make something happen
Good to
here.
see you.
Do you know, so he can get you a crypto wallet so fast.
I thought you were going to do it, Steve. Yeah, listen. Is he going to fund it?
Steve will fund it, exactly.
This is actually worked out pretty well for me today.
I will give you like one millionth of a Bitcoin or something, depending on, I don't have no much of it. There is a funny story. Well, I'm not going to get into that story. Turns out I had like a penny of Bitcoin at one point because I sold all my Bitcoin like way too early. But that penny became worth like $10, over a period of time. So that's, just think about that.
That's the power, right?
Just think about that and cry. Given if it had been any more substantial. But anyway, thank you very much, Neil. I'm really glad to, don't sit right there. Faryar, it's great to have you join us. Thank you for also helping to host today, opening this session. We've had an extraordinary array of minds coming through here and talking about the economy.
Right.
I'm very, very excited about the dramatic innovations going on in the fintech space, broadly, but also with what's going on with stablecoin, what's going on with crypto. And, I think there's a lot of noise out there and there's real stuff. But, President Trump and this administration passed the Genius Act. And I just saw something happen just empirically, which is central banks around the world began paying attention in a way they would never touch this subject. I had two Federal Reserve Bank governors of the United States Federal Reserve call me and say, Steve, if you do another program on crypto, we're happy to show up, which would never have happened a year ago.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty interesting to see what's going on. So I'd love you, Faryar, to help. One, I want our friend here, Neil Bradley at the Chamber, to really, become very literate in everything crypto, and you can help in this. But secondly, I'm interested in what, tell us what the Genius Act achieved. And I'm interested in where, what does your, crystal ball say about what opportunities are going to open up from an American growth perspective?
No, I'm very happy to be here, and it's good to be here with Neil. I think he underplayed how helpful the Chamber has actually been to crypto and to Coinbase. We're a very proud member of all the various parts of the Chamber.
Proud?
Including the litigation folks who were amazing and were very helpful to us when we were under siege over the course of the Biden administration. So big shout out to Neil and his colleagues. So for a lot of people who don't know crypto is fundamentally an information technology breakthrough. It does the thing that the internet was unable to do. And in fact, if you are an internet sort of technology expert, you'll know there's an error code called X402, which was embedded by Mark Andreessen and the folks who developed the initial internet to allow for value transfer. Because the internet is built on a series of decentralized protocols that allow you to transfer data peer-to-peer without the need for an intermediary. So obvious early use cases are emails, texts, where I can send a message to you without needing the postal service or an intermediary to intermediate it. What the internet couldn't do is transfer value. So if I wanted to send you $1, there was no way to know that I had $1. There was no way to send it to you so that you took possession of the dollar. And there was no way for you to tell the public that you're now in possession of that dollar so that you could spend it with another person now that you received it from me. And what crypto did is it created a technology that allows you to create a unique digital token. And that token can be $1, it can be a Bitcoin, it can be an auto title, it can be your mortgage, it can be your identity, it can be anything that you tokenize.
It could be your membership dues in the Chamber.
It could be your membership dues in the Chamber. Actually. And allows a person to transfer it on a peer-to-peer basis through decentralized protocol without the need for an intermediary. So I can send you a message thanking you for whatever, or you can send me a message thanking me for mowing your lawn, and then send me $10 in that same message, and that transaction can be executed. So it sounds like a simple thing, but the impact of that, as you can imagine, is transformational. When the internet was created, a lot of people said, this is kind of cool, but is it that big a deal? And crypto's sort of through the same thing. The first generation of adoption is an efficiency play. Our payment system costs $200+ billion in the US alone. The average household pays about $2,000 simply to pay for payments. We can take that inefficiency out of the system with crypto technology. And then the next generation would be programmability.
For transfer costs?
Just payment, various bank fees, credit card fees, you name it, all of those are embedded. people in this audience don't feel it. Regular folks feel that.
Wow. Wow. So
Which is why it's so transformational. I'm so glad you guys are here today.
A big round of applause, Neil Bradley, EVP of the Chamber of Commerce.
Good to see
He's
you.
had enough of crypto. But I want to just say, thank you, Neil. I want to say, what did the Genius Act do? Because what did it take it to a higher level?
Well, it did something very, very simple. It said that if somebody wants to be an issuer of a stablecoin, they should abide by a whole series of federal regulatory requirements. And they assigned the job of overseeing the stablecoin sector to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which is one of the bank regulators in the U.S. And so if I'm going to be an issuer of a stablecoin, I have to apply to the OCC, be registered and have the relevant entity, have reserve requirements, capital requirements, audits, and do the whole thing. It's a fairly straightforward, it's an extraordinarily straightforward legal regime, but it took years to get there.
So we're there now, but there's now a part 2 that we're trying to talk, right? The Clarity Act.
Yeah.
So what is that? What is the part 2 and why is it important?
Well, if I could just stay on part 1 for a second. So the bill was signed in July, as you know well. In the months since July, in the U.S. alone, there's been something like 100 separate announcements by different banks, payment processors, credit card companies, corporates, on adopting and integrating stablecoins into their payment systems. So
Citi is one of them.
Citi is one of them. Bank of New York, J.P. Morgan. We're partnering with Citi. We're partnering with a number of big banks on the implementation. Stripe, Shopify, Visa, MasterCard. The adoption is fast, even before the bill actually goes into legal effect. What the stablecoin bill didn't do, what the Genius Act didn't do, is provide clear rules for crypto trading. So if I want to create a new crypto token, how will that be regulated? And is it the SEC, is it the CFTC, and who does what? And so Congress is in the process of getting those rules right.
What do you think is going to be the net economic benefit? I know you've talked about the transaction fees for families and whatnot, but there's got to be more.
Look, like a lot of new technologies, it's fundamentally efficiency. It's an efficiency and productivity play. So you take all these inefficiencies that are embedded in the legacy system, and you begin to eliminate them out. So that itself alone is a big productivity driver and GDP driver. But the next generation, as I mentioned, is the first stage of adoptions is an efficiency play. The next stage is a programmability play. And so you're seeing right now people implementing all sorts of smart contract solutions where you can potentially, you and I and a group of friends could decide to go to dinner, and we do something simple like organize a stablecoin-based payment smart contract that governs our night out at Cafe Milano, for example.
Mention my restaurant.
Yeah, I'm speaking to my audience here, and make sure that the payment takes place. Cafe Milano, we avoid the hassle of having to do the processing. Payment goes to Cafe Milano. They don't pay the credit card fees. They save 2 to 3%. But there are much more profound things. And the Trump administration, to its credit, is actually putting government data now on the blockchain. So the Commerce Department is doing this with economic data. The Labor Department will likely follow on putting it on. And so if you have data issued by the government on the blockchain, then people can build smart contracts, including event contracts, derivative contracts, capital markets activity based on data that is verifiable issued from the government.
I've known Faryar for decades, and one of the things I'm going to
even though we're both like 29.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, it's very, very. Maybe even younger in the 20s. And but what's really interesting is to hear you talk, the enthusiasm, your literacy in this. I mean, it's like a whole new world with new lingo and new norms and whatnot. And you used to be at Goldman Sachs, which used to be a cool company.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's Goldman, right? I mean, so if any of you are Goldman, then don't tell David Solomon I said that. But Goldman Sachs is now kind of, compared to what you're doing, sort of fuddy-duddy, right? And you were President Bush's international economic policy advisor, and I'm sure a lot of the crowd you hung out with there. You're sort of interesting because you're with all the old conventional Republican economic thinkers. But you're the only one I know who's made it over to the other side as strongly as you have. I mean, are they looking to you for guidance and helping them to understand the lingo? I mean, because I am interested. There's a sociological change that's going on in finance, and you're the spear of it. But you have a lot of other people in that ecosystem that would not follow half of what you just shared.
Yeah, it's funny when I got approached by Coinbase.
Did you have to go to an education camp?
Well, I actually talked to Brian Armstrong and some of the other execs there. And the lucky thing for me was I understood quickly that very simple point I made about what crypto is.
Right.
It solved a problem that finance ministries, central banks, governments have been trying to resolve for 20, 30 years, which is how do you take the inefficiency out of payments? And then the implications of that are profound. But for me personally, when I was approached, I actually thought, you know what, this could be actually really fun. It's like going back to 1997 and being the guy who gets to explain what the internet is. And I mean, and that's kind of what this job feels like. A lot of what I'm talking about, we'll all sort of look back with some bemusement once the tech gets implemented much more broadly. But there are bumps from here to there. And Goldman, by the way, is an excellent company and does really good. We work with them, and they're.
I think they're an excellent company too. But so just for the record, and we are on C-SPAN. So, but I think in terms of the American growth, there's one side of it. But the other part that really intrigues, and you and I have been around the world together and talked about this in front of very powerful audiences around the world. The rest of the world is sniffing what we're doing. They're sniffing what you're doing. They're interested. They're not sure. There's some trepidation. Some countries are jumping in whole hog. We had a dinner together, I think I can say it, where I couldn't keep the central bankers out. We had so many minutes. We had a dinner for 50 people, like in 2 days, like, oh, crypto and Faryar, boom. What is going on internationally? And I think, do you expect the uptake rate internationally, inspired by what's going on in the United States, to be as profoundly quick, or are there villains in that story?
No, it's moving quite quickly. I mean, in a way, the Biden administration tried to kill the sector and tried to drive it offshore for reasons that I think to this day don't fully make sense. But what you had is the Singaporeans, the UAE, the European Union, the Brazilians, and others recognize that there's an opportunity here, the Swiss, many others. But what's happened since the Trump administration came in is that everyone has understood that this is going to happen. And if you understand the technology to be a breakthrough on value transfer, and at the moment, stable coins, these dollar-backed crypto tokens, are 98% dollar denominated. So there's for those of you who are involved in the IMF World Bank meetings, I think.
Is it a way of making the dollar great again?
Well, I mean, Pierre Yarad mentioned it. Right now, there's about $280 billion of stablecoins in circulation. Citi anticipates the market cap of dollar stablecoins to go up to, I think they said 2 to 3 trillion. Others think it could well exceed $3 trillion. Each dollar that's issued as a stablecoin is backed by short-dated treasuries. So as Pierre mentioned earlier, this is an enormous catalyst for dollar. It's a big demand driver for U.S. government debt at the time where the U.S. government needs demand for debt. But it's also if this is the architecture of payments, this will become a huge driver. And so other countries are now in a very nervous situation and trying to be proactive to their credit in ensuring that the GBP pound sterling stablecoin is on the landscape. The ECB has got a different type of solution, but countries around the world are looking at putting their own currencies on the blockchain so that it's not just a dollar-dominated ecosystem.
Well, this is fascinating. This is the American Growth Summit, but I'm sure some of you will sneak to Davos. Anyone going to Davos? Anyone willing to admit it? We got a few hands. So let me know, because Coinbase is going to have the biggest branding on the promenade, right? So we're going to have the biggest branding on the promenade, and he's going to be doing a lot of these discussions there. So let me know what you're going to be doing. But Faryar, I want to thank you very, very much for supporting today's conversations and making this real for us, because I think people are trying to conceptualize what are the building blocks of growth and how are we going to think about these new innovations that are going on. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's a great event. Thanks, Steve.
Ladies and gentlemen, Faryar Shirzad, Chief Policy Officer from Coinbase.